The 1970s were the golden era of muscle cars. Big engines, aggressive designs, and raw power ruled the streets. But as time went on, some of the most legendary muscle cars became nearly impossible to find. Whether due to ultra-low production numbers, collectors hoarding them, or sky-high prices, these machines are now out of reach for most buyers. Let's take a look at some of the rarest muscle cars that have all but disappeared from the open market. These are the rarest and most sought-after muscle cars from the golden era that you may never have the chance to own. Starting off our list is one of the rarest muscle cars of all time, the 1971 Plymouth HEMI Cuda Convertible. With only 12 ever built, this is the ultimate collector's piece. Equipped with a 426 HEMI V8 producing 425 horsepower, this convertible is a factory-built street racer. The combo of rarity, extreme performance, and timeless styling has made this car nearly impossible to buy. When one does surface, expect a price tag of over $3 million. That's right, this muscle car isn't just rare, it's one of the most expensive American cars ever sold at auction. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 was GM's ultimate statement in muscle car performance. Packing a 454 cubic inch V8 with a factory-rated 450 horsepower, it was one of the most powerful production muscle cars of its time. Only a few hundred were ever built with the L6 package, and today finding an original numbers-matching car is nearly impossible. When they do pop up for sale, expect prices in the six-figure range, making this one of the most desirable yet unattainable Chevelles ever built. When Dodge introduced the Challenger in 1970, they made sure to give it serious performance credentials. The RT HEMI version came with a legendary 426 HEMI engine, producing a 425 horsepower and dominating the streets. Dodge only made 356 of these HEMI-equipped models in 1970, and the numbers have dwindled even further due to crashes and racing losses over the decades. Original examples today fetch well over $500,000, and with collectors keeping them locked away, getting your hands on one is nearly impossible. While the Boss 429 and Boss 302 Mustangs get most of the attention, the 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351 is one of the rarest performance Mustangs of the era. With only a little over 1,800 built, it featured a high-revving 351 Cleveland V8 pushing 330 horsepower. Despite its impressive performance, the Boss 351 was overshadowed by bigger displacement models, and many were driven hard and wrecked. Today, finding one in original condition is nearly impossible, and prices for restored versions continue to climb. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 was Buick's answer to the muscle car wars, and it was a serious contender. With a 455 cubic inch V8 pushing a factory-rated 360 horsepower and monstrous 510 pound-feet of torque, this was one of the quickest muscle cars of its time. The GSX was available in two colors, Apollo White and Saturn Yellow, and featured a wild rear spoiler and rally stripes. Despite its incredible performance, only 678 GSX Stage 1 models were built in 1970. Today, surviving examples fetch over $200,000, and with most locked away in collections, getting your hands on one is nearly impossible. It remains one of the most underrated but most powerful muscle cars ever built. The Super Bee was Dodge's affordable, no-nonsense muscle car, but in 1971, things got serious. The 1971 Dodge Super Bee 426 HEMI was one of the rarest configurations ever made, with only 22 units built with a HEMI engine. This car featured aggressive styling with a new fuselage body, dual hood scoops, and an unmistakable Super Bee badging. Despite lightweight construction and a monstrous 426 HEMI under the hood, the rising cost of insurance and stricter emissions laws meant that few buyers opted for this powerhouse. With so few made, original numbers matching HEMI Super Bees are nearly impossible to buy today, often commanding prices over 500 Gs. Pontiac's GTO was already a legend, but in 1970 they introduced the ultimate version, the GTO Judge Ram Air 4. The Ram Air 4 400 cubic inch V8 produced 370 underrated horsepower, but real-world figures had it closer to 420. Despite its legendary performance, only 325 Judge models were built with the Ram Air 4 package in 1970, making it one of the rarest GTOs ever. And many of these cars were pushed to their limits at the drag strip, and today only a handful of survivors exist. When one does surface, expect to pay well over $400K for a fully documented example. While the Ford Mustang stole the spotlight, the Mercury Cougar Eliminator was its sophisticated but equally powerful sibling. The rarest of them all was the 1970 Cougar Eliminator 428 Super Cobra Jet. With only 37 built, this car is nearly impossible to find today. The Eliminator package included a competition suspension, rear deck spoiler, and bold graphics. The 428 Super Cobra Jet engine, paired with a drag pack option, made this one of the most potent Mercury muscle cars ever. Its extreme rarity and limited public knowledge make it a true hidden gem, often fetching over $300,000 when one becomes available. By 1971, muscle cars were facing an uphill battle, but Plymouth wasn't done yet. The 1971 Plymouth Roadrunner GTX with a 426 HEMI was one of the last great muscle cars before emissions regulations changed everything. Only 30 were ever produced. With its bold fuselage styling, air grabber hood, and unmistakable beep-beep Roadrunner call, this car combined muscle with personality. But with so few built, it's become one of the hardest muscle cars to find today. If one does appear at auction, expect its price to exceed $500,000. Oldsmobile wasn't the first name that came to mind for muscle cars, but in 1970 they shocked the industry with the 442 W30. With a 455 cubic inch V8 and factory rating of 370 horsepower, it was a serious contender in the muscle car wars. Only 262 were made in 1970, and their combination of rarity and high performance makes them highly sought after. Today, these cars regularly fetch six-figure prices, with pristine examples pushing $400,000. If you want one, you'll have to compete with the top collectors in the world. The 1971 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455 HO was a last hurrah for high-performance muscle before emissions regulations began tightening. The 455 HO engine was underrated at 335 horsepower, but real-world testing suggested numbers closer to 400. The car featured an aggressive shaker hood scoop and a race-inspired front-end design. Only 1,231 were made in 71, and a few remain in original condition. Today, these cars are locked away in collections, and when they do show up at auctions, they command well over $150,000. This Trans Am was one of the final true muscle cars of its era. While the Charger and Challenger get most of the Mopar love, the 1970 Dodge Coronet R T426 HEMI was just as capable and much rarer. Dodge built only 13 of these Coronet RTs with a HEMI engine, making it one of the scarcest Mopars ever. With its aggressive twin-scoop hood and unmistakable bumblebee stripe, the Coronet RT had the looks and power to back it up. Many were used for street racing and drag racing, making survivors incredibly hard to find. If you want one today, expect to pay close to $500,000 if you can find one at all. AMC wasn't as well known as Dodge, Ford, or Chevrolet in the muscle car wars, but the 1971 Javelin AMX 401 was a serious competitor. The high-performance 401 cubic inch V8 produced 330 horsepower, and the AMX package added a functional ram air hood, racing stripes, and a rear spoiler. Only 53 of these cars were ever built with a 401 engine, making them nearly impossible to find today. Because AMC muscle cars don't have the same recognition as their big three competitors, many of these were either driven hard or scrapped. Pristine examples are now collectors' dreams, with values climbing rapidly. Chevrolet's Z28 package was already legendary by the early 70s, but in 71 they took things even further with the Z28 LT1. Under the hood was the high-revving LT1 350 cubic inch V8, producing 330 horsepower. This was one of the best-handling muscle cars of its time, built with performance in mind. However, stricter emissions regulations and rising insurance costs meant that sales suffered. Only 4,862 were made in 1971, and finding one in original condition is extremely rare. When one does hit the market, expect six-figure prices due to its legendary status among car enthusiasts. The Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet was one of the most powerful muscle cars Ford ever built. The 429 Super Cobra Jet engine was a monster, producing an underrated 375 horsepower, though real-world numbers had it closer to 450. The car was built for high-speed runs, featuring an oil cooler, 4.11 gears, and a drag pack option for serious performance. Despite the power, Torino's Cobra was overshadowed by the Mustang and Charger, leading to low production numbers. With only 767 built, these cars are nearly impossible to find today, and their value continues to rise as collectors recognize their significance. The 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner Superbird is one of the most iconic and instantly recognizable muscle cars of all time. With its massive rear wing and pointed aerodynamic nose, this car was built for one reason: to dominate NASCAR. The 426 HEMI engine made sure it had the power to match its aggressive looks, producing a factory-rated 425 horsepower. However, despite its race-winning capabilities, the Superbird wasn't a huge hit with consumers. The extreme design wasn't practical for street driving, and Plymouth struggled to sell them. Only 135 HEMI-equipped Superbirds ever got built, making it one of the most valuable muscle cars today. If you want one, expect to pay upwards of $1 million for a pristine example. While the Dodge Challenger RT was already a muscle car legend, the SE Special Edition package took it to a whole other level. SE's trim added luxury touches like leather bucket seats, wood grain accents, and a smaller, formal rear window. But under the hood, it packed the monstrous 426 HEMI, making it one of the rarest Challenger configs ever built. Only 60 Challenger RT SE models were ordered with a HEMI in 1970. Given that these were often pushed to their limits on the streets or strip, very few survive today in original condition. If one does surface, you'll need at least $500K to add this beast to your collection. The Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454 was built for those who wanted muscle car power wrapped in luxury. With a 454 cubic inch LS5 V8 producing 360 horsepower, Monte Carlo SS was a force to be reckoned with. But unlike most muscle cars of the time, it featured a refined and comfortable interior, making it unique among high-performance machines. Despite its capabilities, Monte Carlo SS 454 was overshadowed by other Chevy models like the Chevelle SS. As a result, fewer than 3,800 were produced in 1970, and even fewer remain today. While it may not be the most famous muscle car ever, collectors now recognize its rarity, pushing prices beyond $100,000 for pristine examples. The 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429 was built to homologate Ford's massive 429 cubic inch NASCAR engine for racing. This was no ordinary Mustang. The engine had to be squeezed into the chassis, requiring extensive modifications, including widened front shock towers and a specially designed intake system. With a factory rating of 375 horsepower, real-world numbers suggested well over 500. With only 499 made in 1970, the Boss 429 is one of the rarest Mustangs ever. Today, finding an original numbers matching Boss 429 is nearly impossible, but when one does hit the market, its prices easily exceed $500,000. At the very top of our list sits the 1971 Plymouth HEMI Cuda Convertible, arguably the most legendary muscle car of all time. With only 11 units ever built, this car is the ultimate dream machine for collectors. The 426 HEMI V8 under the hood turned the lightweight Cuda into an absolute monster, capable of quarter-mile times in the low 13-second range straight from the factory. Due to its extreme rarity and legendary status, the Cuda Convertible has shattered records at auction, with some selling for over $3.5 million. Owning one of these is next to impossible, as most are locked away in private collections, making it the crown jewel of American muscle cars. And that wraps up our list of the 20 most legendary and impossible to buy muscle cars of the 70s. These cars weren't just fast, they were iconic, defining an entire era of American performance. Whether due to ultra-low production numbers, their dominance on the track, or sky-high collectors' prices, these machines are nearly impossible to own today. Which of these muscle cars would you want in your dream garage? Or do you know of another ultra-rare 70s muscle car that deserves a spot on this list? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Legends of the Road, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.